Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to the Fixes In. It's a new podcast discussing current fights coming up this weekend from UFC to boxing. Let's get into it. We're going to start off today with what's going on in boxing. We have a couple big events. We have UFC 236 going on this weekend. Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier 2, and we have Israel Adesanya versus Kelvin Gastelum for both title fights. We also have some boxing going on. We have Lomachenko in action, Gilberto Ramirez, Hammer versus Claressa Shields. There's quite a few fights. Go try to touch on all of them. Let's get into it. All right, so the point of this podcast is pretty much to inform you. I know a lot of people like to bet on fights. I know me especially. That's like one of the things I like to do. So just like a quick brush up, make you more knowledgeable. That way you feel like you're making the correct bet. We have so I'm going to kind of touch on a few things, and hopefully that informs you enough that you're making like good decisions and you're out there not really losing your money like that. Let's see. All right. This is the first episode, so you guys bear with me. It's like a learning process. All right. So far, what's one I want to touch on? All right, we have Lomachenko versus Adam Crolla. I mean, unless you haven't really been paying attention, you know Lomachenko, like he's one of the top pound for pound fighters. We have Adam Crolla, pretty good fighter. I've seen him fight a couple times. To me, this one's a pretty simple fight to bet on. Usually the betting odds, I like to use my bookie just to kind of see where the odds are at. Over here, you can see that right now the money line has been Vasiliy Lomachenko at minus 7,180. Those are pretty huge odds. So Adam Crolla is a pretty big underdog. Adam Crolla is 2,415. He has a plus on that. So that pretty much means that if you bet $1 on Adam Crolla to win, you'll win 24 times that amount. So that lets you know how heavy of a favorite Lomachenko is. With fights like this, unless you're betting big money with the sense of like trying to come up on like an extra 1,000 or something. So say you're betting, you have $10,000 to bet and you want to win a little bit of extra money. Like, I don't know what I'm terrible at math, so I don't know what the math is on that. But like if you have $10,000, $20,000 that you want to bet and you're down to win $1,000, but possibly lose 10 to 20,000, that's the kind of fight that you bet on. But that's because like Lomachenko's almost guaranteed to win you your money. So if it's worth it to you to win a little bit of money by betting big, then like Lomachenko's a pretty safe bet right there. We have some other ones. Christina Hammer versus Shields. Shields is the favorite in this one. She's a minus 280 favorite. Minus usually means favorite, by the way. And then Christina Hammer's a plus 230 underdog. So if you bet on Christina Hammer, you'll win 2.3 times the amount that you bet. So Hammer, she's pretty good. Like I don't know. Like Vegas usually knows what they're doing, but I would have had it a little bit closer just in case, because it's not like Hammer's a bad fighter at all. Claressa Shields is obviously the favorite, but those are pretty favorable odds. Like if you're feeling frisky, I'd take a shot on Hammer on that, but like Shields is a pretty safe bet for that. Um, Caleb Truax versus Peter Quillin. Peter Quillin is I'm a really big fan of Peter Quillin. Caleb Truax, I've seen him fight a few times. He's a pretty good fighter. That's a close fight. Peter Quillin, he took a lot of time off after the Jacobs fight. Like that was a first round knockout. I bet on Quillin in that fight too. Yeah, that was a pretty rough loss, but he came back. I forget exactly who he fought, but he came back and he won that fight pretty decisively. But yeah, you never know. Like with it's kind of like Caleb Trucks is like no pushover at all. So that's another good fight to bet on. I have to go with Quillin. I just have to. But if you go on Caleb Trucks, it's far from an upset. I'll tell you that much. And then Sergey Devchenko, I can't pronounce that. Sergey D is fighting Jack Kulke. I've seen Sergey fight like the last few fights like on HBO before HBO boxing got shut down. I picked him to beat Jacobs. He did really good against Jacobs. I think the size was like the biggest factor in Jacobs pulling that off. Like skill wise, they matched up pretty well. I think Sergey, I feel like he's a little more skilled than Jacobs. And had he had the same size, I think he pulls out that victory because it was a really close fight. But yeah, if you look at the betting odds here, yeah, he's a pretty heavy favorite. So that's a safe bet. Like that's a safe pick. Like you want to make a little bit of money again, I'd go with Sergey on this one. A couple of these fights, I'm not too familiar with some of these fighters. I'm not gonna advise you. Like my mom always told me, don't say what you don't know. So yeah, I don't really know too much about these fighters right here, so I'm not gonna touch on those. Chris Colbert, I've seen him, aka Little B Hop. That's a really good fighter. And yeah, Vegas knows he's a really good fighter. What else we got? I'm assuming Diego De La Hoya is related to Oscar. Jaime Munguia, very underrated fighter. Very good. I think Jaime Munguia is a really good fighter, honestly. And he's one of those people that aren't talked about. You hear about people like Shakur Stevenson, what's his name? Tank. A lot of like young fighters, but you don't really hear too many people talk about Jaime Munguia. He's really good, and the reason why I put him in that same group with them is just because like you'd be surprised by how young he is. I think he's only like 22 right now, 22, 23, like very young, already a world champion, one of the best in the division already. And if you're comparing them to the other ones, I think Tank is the only one kind of in that class as far as people in their early 20s who are like overachieving. But Munguia is not really talked about in the same light, but he's doing it in a really good division as well. So yeah, those are some of the boxing fights going on this weekend. You guys can feel free to comment on who you think is going to win. Maybe you have different picks than I do. Usually, what I like to do, I like to get other people's perspectives on it because it doesn't really. If I knew it all, I'd be a rich man. So, like, if somebody could convince me otherwise that maybe I'm wrong, I would be more than happy to hear it. Hopefully, you'll change my opinion and make me some money. So yeah. What else we got? This is a tricky one, man. But this is one that I feel like these are the ones I like to bet on because I like to do parlays. So I like when the odds are pretty close, or either I'm picking the underdog who I really feel confident that they're going to win, or I like when it's a close fight. Just that, like when I'm doing a parlay, it's going to pay off. And some of you guys might not know what a parlay is if you're new to betting. It's just pretty much like it's like a betting slip. So you're making multiple picks. All of them have to hit. every single fight that you hit, every single fight that you pick has to like be correct, and you make a lot of money. Like the profit margin on a parlay is crazy. But say you picked 7 different fights and you chose the winner, and 6 out of 7 are correct. If you get that one wrong, the ticket, you might as well throw it in the garbage. It's just like one of those things. Like if you're confident that you can pick multiple things correctly, then I feel like parlay is the way to go. And that way you can like really make a profit, because the more picks you have going, the crazier your odds are. So yeah, like I'd recommend a parlay for that one. And then, all right, hold on. All right, I'm gonna put you guys on hold for 1 second. I'm gonna bring in another boxing person so that we can kind of get another opinion on this. That way you guys aren't just taking it from me, because like I said, I don't know it all, but I know a good amount. So I feel like if you take my opinion and the opinion of some other people that I trust that may differ from mine, and you put those together, like it might give you the right recipe to pull off a good win. So I'm gonna bring in somebody. I'm just gonna put you guys on hold for 1 second. All right, sorry for the hold up. I got a boxing expert in here. I got the homie Brandon. I got the homie Brandon on the line. Hey Brandon, can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me,
man. Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for coming on, man. Yeah, so I was talking about some of the boxing fights this weekend. Adam Crolla versus Lomachenko. What do you got? Like, what's your opinion on that?
You know, man, out of all the fights this weekend, I think this is probably going to be probably the least fun fight, the least entertaining fight. You know what? and then you've had this talk plenty of times, you know, like an A beats B and B beats C, there's ABC. So in this scenario, Lomachenko beat Linares. Linares beat up Anthony Crolla twice. So does that mean Lomachenko beats up Anthony Crolla? I don't really follow that, you know, that method. I don't believe that. It's all about styles. But Lomachenko's beating up anybody in front of him. So I got Lomachenko winning, man, by 6-round knockout, man, and that's pretty early. that's pretty early, man.
So I take it you're not really giving Anthony Crolla a chance in this fight?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Hey, you know what's funny? He did an interview, and he said that Lomachenko's a way better boxer and way smarter than him, IQ-wise. So if you're going into the fight, already doubting yourself, then I don't have, it looks bad.
It sounds like he's not going to bet on himself, so how can you bet on him at that point?
Exactly. Like, you didn't tell me to fight. So if you don't believe in yourself, I'm believing you. But, oh well, man, it's nothing that nobody already knows. So
it's just crazy, like the fear that I've never seen somebody have like that impact on other boxers outside of like power punchers. Like it's usually like big hitters that have it like where it's like shit. Like I'm pretty sure I'm gonna lose this fight. Like, but
you know what it is, man?
What is it?
I think because he lost twice to Ramirez. So he lost twice to Ramirez. He saw Lomachenko beat Ramirez, and it's like, well, damn, if I lost twice to this dude, and this dude beat this dude, why am I fighting him? You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I don't know. And Crolla got beat up twice by Ramirez. So I don't know who set the fight up, man, but I think it's just a stay busy fight for Lomachenko, honestly.
Yeah, he has a mandatory coming up, right? I forget the guy's name, the African dude.
Which one?
He just won the belt. What's old boy's name?
It's not Dogbo.
No, not Dogbo's too small. Hold on.
Dogbo's moving up though, isn't he?
He better not. No, I think he did move up, didn't he? For his last fight, then he got beat up by some fighter. I think they were running that fight back. I think they're gonna have a rematch of that fight.
Go back down, man.
I think that fight's a winnable fight though. Like even though he was fighting a bigger guy, I think he could beat that guy, but he should take that as a lesson not to go up. Like if you learn anything from fighters like Chocolatito and all that, like yeah, like
speak of the devil, man. I think he has the most interesting fight this weekend.
Who, Chocolatito?
No, not Chocolatito. I'm thinking of Peter Quillin. Chocolatito, I think he's done, by the way. So
I thought he was like set to retire, so
yeah, he should, man. He should.
And Richard Comey's who I was thinking about.
Yeah. He has he has 2 losses, doesn't he? I think they were early though.
Yeah.
Early in his career.
He's good, man. Like
yeah, he is. Is he good enough to be Lomachenko?
No, probably not. But that's the fight like I'd expect to see right now. I didn't feel like I was going to see Lomachenko fighting like Crolla right now. But
yeah,
it is what it is. And then what else? You just brought up a fight that I was like, I'm trying like one of the things that I'm learning about betting. A lot of times I bet with my heart rather than like what I actually seen, like with my own 2 eyes. And a lot of times my heart loses me some money. So, so am I betting with my heart when I think Peter Quillin's going to beat Caleb Truax, or what's going on there? How do you feel about that one?
I think it's tough, man. I honestly think I've been going back and forth with this fight for a while. Peter Quillin hasn't, he obviously hasn't looked too good. Like he beat up Jaime Love for his last fight. Okay, now honestly, I think I can hang with Jaime Love. So that's not saying much. That's not saying much, But he did beat the hell out of Jaime Love. So Caleb Truax, man, I think his last 2 fights. I remember he took Danny Jacobs 12 rounds. He lost that fight. He beat up James DeGale, and then he lost to James DeGale. They ran it back and he lost. and he looked good in all those fights, man. And that's why it's tough. It's tough because the last time I seen Peter Quillin fight somebody decent, he got knocked out. And so, but Caleb Truax, he's hanging in there, man. Like, he arguably, if Danny Jacobs didn't stop him in the 12th round, it was a close fight. First time he fought James DeGale, he beat up James DeGale. They ran it back. It was another good fight. Could have gone either way. So it's just man. I think it's pure heart that you're betting on Quillin. But I wouldn't call it a bad bet by any means. I would not say it's a bad bet. It's honestly a 50-50 chance. I think that knockout from Danny Jacobs when Jacobs knocked out Quillin, I think that kind of messed him up a little bit, man. Same thing as when Pacquiao got knocked out. Pacquiao wasn't the same for a while.
You do bring up a...
So I hope Quillin wins. I wouldn't bet on it, but I hope he wins, though.
But, all right, so, yeah, that's what I'm saying right now. Like, I just need some insight, and that kind of changed my perspective on it because I do feel like I'm going with my heart on Quillin more than, like, what I'm seeing. Because if I, like, look back to, like, the Andy Lee fight, when Peter Quillin fought Andy Lee, they had, like, a draw, I believe. And then Andy Lee was catching him with some stuff. And Andy Lee that's not even Andy Lee in his prime. Like, that wasn't even prime Andy Lee.
No, not at all.
So, and then you have then you have like a fight in between, or a fight or two in between, then you fight Daniel Jacobs and you get knocked out in like the first round. And then how long do you take off after that Danny Jacobs fight? You took like 2 years off?
It was damn near 2 years.
Yeah. Like when you're actually going by like what you have seen, and thank you for correcting me on how to pronounce his name. Caleb Truax is probably the safe pick on that one. Like if you're betting on it, don't get me wrong, you don't have to bet on every single fight, but that's definitely one. Like if you have to bet on it, based off everything I've heard, Caleb Truax is probably the better pick to go with on that. And you'll make a little money because he's the underdog in that. They have Caleb Truax as a plus 195, so that's almost 2-1. So you'll win twice as much as you put down. So that's.
Let me ask you a quick question. Do you think that a fighter? So Truax, for example, his toughest opponents have probably been James DeGale, Andre Durrell, and Danny Jacobs. Peter's hardest opponents or toughest opponents were Peter Quillin. His toughest opponents were Dave Rosado, Andy Lee, and Danny Jacobs. So clearly, Caleb Truax has fought harder opponents. Clearly.
Yeah.
So now, if you have a fighter who goes the distance and he's in an arguable fight, he arguably won the fight against A-list opponents, or a fighter who beats up C-list opponents. I'm not sure if I worded that correctly, but you get what I'm saying? I
get what I already knew where you were going with it, but you got me lost in there.
No, Peter Quillin beat up C-list fighters, and Caleb Truax is taking A-list fighters to distance and arguably winning.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw their little face-off or whatever, where Quillin was talking about sparring, and then like Truax brought up sparring, I believe, and then Quillin took a little offense to it, but Truax, I think what he was saying was based off who he was at the time. He was hanging in there with a guy who was most likely in his prime at that time. So he knows that. Yeah. He knows that Peter Quillin's not the same fighter that he was, but but he knows that Truax knows that he's a better version of himself than he was when he fought Quillin. So when he puts
that's exactly what I took from it. So like I thought that Quillin not beat up, but he got the better of Truax in the sparring. Truax knows that. They both know that. Yeah. And Truax knows that Quillin got worse. Truax got better, Quillin got worse. Because Quillin was back then. I think Quillin was jumping into his prime.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't like a crazy. It wasn't like a long time ago. It was probably like 5 to 7 years based off what I was hearing, and then you take into account that 4 years ago is when the Jacobs fight took place. Like it wasn't really that long ago. And then
I think he knows, man. And you know what? I think Peter Quillin knows that Truax got a lot better, and he's not the same person from the spar session.
Yeah, and then Quillin takes long layoffs too. Like you got to take that into account. Just like really long layoffs. Like even before the Jacobs fight, he always seemed to have like huge gaps in between his fights.
Yeah.
And then he's 35 right now, going on 36. He's about to be 36 pretty soon. Yeah. Like I think.
You know what's funny?
What's that?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say. You know what's funny is that Caleb Truax fought Danny Jacobs right before Peter Quillin fought him. So they fought him the same year. Truax took him 12 rounds, and you know what happened to Quillin in the first round. So I don't know what that means, man. I don't know what that means. And so they both obviously sparred each other before the Jacobs fight. So they sparred each other before the Jacobs fight. But I think Caleb Truax is a better boxer. Danny Jacobs is a boxer. Caleb Truax is a very good boxer.
So do you have
it's tough, man.
Do you have a prediction as far as the round?
I honestly have it. I was talking to one of my buddies. I have it Caleb Truax majority decision. So 12 rounds majority decision.
Yeah. I think.
But like I said, man, it's still a coin toss though.
Yeah.
It's still a coin toss. I couldn't give him a unanimous decision. I couldn't do it.
I could see Quillin dropping him at some point. And I do see like the only way that Quillin wins the fight is by knockout. So
I agree with that.
So if it goes to decision, Truax is gonna pull it off, and anybody can get knocked out, but I hope Peter Quillin doesn't get knocked out. But yeah, like, did he get dropped by Andy Lee?
By Andy Lee, he did.
Oh man.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Yeah, you changed my mind, man. Or you, yeah. Set me straight.
Like I said, man, it's still. I think it's still a coin toss. It honestly is. I hope the old Quillin comes back. Whatever that means. But I hope he comes back, man.
Okay. And then for the Sergey fight, who do you have there?
Oh, you said for the Lomachenko fight?
Pronounce her name again. I don't know why you're better at pronouncing names now. Derevyanchenko, yeah.
Hey, now don't sleep on Jack O'Kay, man. Don't sleep on him. But he's getting beat up though. He's getting slept, but don't sleep on him. If that makes any type of sense. He's a damn good fighter. But I think Sergey's mad. He's mad about the Danny Jacobs fight. And I think he's gonna come out just throwing bombs, man.
Yeah. Who is Jack O'Kay fought? Because I have never seen him fight. I'm like looking at his record right now. It looks like this is his first. This is debut in America, so that's probably why I never seen him fight. But you saying don't sleep on him?
Nah, man. He's I know he's from. Where's he from? Like Venezuela or something?
No, Germany.
I know he got beat up by. He didn't get beat up. He fought my boy. That's probably his toughest fight when he fought Demetrius Andrade. I don't remember the year he fought him. It was a while ago. You know, they were both kind of young. Like, and Andron was still up and coming.
Yeah.
I think he lost. Hold on, I gotta look it up, man. But I think he lost by like a majority decision or a split decision or something. But that was back when I thought, you know, Andron was the next biggest thing. I thought he was the next big thing in the 154 division.
Yeah, he's still. I mean, he hasn't let you down.
No, he hasn't. But it's just that he's supposed to be beating opponents like this. You know, when you're labeled the next big thing, you're supposed to be, you know, taking care of business.
Yeah.
And going the distance with a B-list fighter, B-minus fighter, and winning by split decision isn't, you know, that's not getting the job done.
Would you advise anybody to bet money on Jack Coucay?
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. You have the odds up by any chance?
Yeah, he's plus 790, so almost just short of an 8-1.
Anybody can win from a punch. So all it takes is one punch to knock anybody out. 790 is a lot, man. That's a lot. Honestly, I would bet $20 just because. But you better know that you're going to lose that 20.
Nah, man, I'm not betting $20. I have to like truly. For me, I have to like really feel like there's a chance. Like I have to believe that there's really a chance. And like I said, I never seen Jack Coucay fight. My mom said, "Don't say what you don't know." So I'm gonna leave that shit alone.
Now, I'm not going to act like I've seen him fight a lot. I've seen him fight twice. I've seen the Andre fight because that's my boy. And then I just seen him on a random undercard. And I remember him because he fought Andre. And he's cool, man. He's honestly cool. He's a good boxer. A lot of those English fighters are, you know, like technical boxers. They try to be, you know, like the Carl Framptons and the Scott Quiggs.
Mm.
You know, they try to beat James DeGale. A lot of the English dudes are very technical boxers.
Yeah.
And he's European, I should say, not English, European guy. So, but still, man, he's not beating Lomachenko, so it doesn't even matter. This fight might be more one-sided than the Lomachenko fight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's real, man. You saw the Danny Jacobs fight when Sergey fought Danny Jacobs.
Yeah, no, I thought he did some really good things. I was saying I feel like the height was just the size advantage was really the only reason why Jacobs pulled that off. I feel like without that, he loses that fight.
Who did you have winning? Because a lot of people had Sergey winning.
Even though I was going for Sergey, I still had Danny Jacobs.
Yeah,
I just don't feel like he did enough to say that he won it.
Yeah,
and then
that was a good way to put it.
And then Dennis Hogan versus Jaime Munguia.
Oh yeah, that's not even worth talking about. It's really not. And you know, honestly, man, and you put me on Munguia, man. So you honestly got me watching him. You know, like I've obviously seen him, didn't pay too much attention to him. Yeah. And I think when he fought, who did he beat up, man? Was it Saddam Ali?
He beat up Saddam Ali, then he beat up what's his name from the UK who got knocked out by Canelo to the body shot.
It was the Saddam Ali fight was the first time that I actually paid attention to him. I know you were talking about him before. I think we even bet on that fight. Yeah, you're talking about him before. I gave him no attention. Dude from TJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's nice, man. He's very nice. And he beat up my boy Liam Smith.
That's who it was, Liam Smith. I just pulled it out too. That was a good win.
Yeah, he's legit, man. So thank you for introducing him to me. You know, making me watch him. You know, like I said, I knew he was. I just didn't care for him.
Man,
I thought Saddam Ali was going to beat him up. He beat the brakes off Saddam Ali. So, like I said, man, you know what? A lot of the fights this weekend are pretty predictable. You know, minus the Quillin and Truax fight.
Yeah.
The rest of the fights seem pretty predictable.
What about the ladies, man?
You know what, man? The first time we talked about it, I had Christina Hammer winning, but Christina Hammer, she might get beat up. She might get beat the hell up, honestly. Claressa Shields, she's a beast, man. She is a beast. And she's only what? She's 19?
Is she only 19?
That's crazy, man. Yes. She's only 19, man. Unless she turned 20 within the last month. She is only 19. She's crazy. She is crazy.
That's crazy. I did not know she was that young.
She has a good camp, though. I know she's always with Andre Ward. She's always with Shakur Stevenson.
Man, she's 24, man.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, still younger than I thought. I thought she was older. I thought she was a lot older.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that. Claressa explains it all. But she only has 8 fights, though. She only has 8 fights under her belt. I don't know for sure.
No, but it's crazy. Like, maybe she was 19 when she made her debut, because I've been hearing her name for a while now, like a long time.
Yeah. A while.
Maybe like the Olympics or something.
Did she have something going on with Floyd? Wasn't she training at the Mayweather gym as well?
It says she's from Flint, so that might be the connection right there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've seen her training at the Mayweather gym.
So what made you think Christina Hammer was going to win it originally?
Because she's a good boxer, man, and she's big. And then I saw the weigh-in, and she didn't look as big. She didn't look as big when she stood next to Claressa Shields. So Claressa's obviously stronger. She's faster. I gave Christina Hammer a chance because of the reach, and I've seen some of her older fights, man. Like she's a pretty good boxer. Claressa Shields' defense is terrible. I don't know if you've seen her defense, man, but she goes in. She swings. It's weird because she swings wild, but she's accurate. Like it's just weird. And Christina Hammer throws a lot. She throws a lot of punches. And she's long.
Yeah, I see the height. Advantage. I believe Claressa Shields is 5'8", and then Hammer got like a reach advantage as well. But yeah, 24 fights, 11 KOs. Yeah, it's kind of,
and that makes you think, that makes you think that the power is not there.
Yeah, I mean, I seen Hammer fight a couple times, just like on like Showtime, just in passing. But it kind of looked like they had both of them fighting tune-up fights for a while, thinking that this matchup was going to happen a lot sooner than it did.
Yeah.
So they just kept getting tune-up fights. So like the people that they were in the ring with weren't really a real test of them. So I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to like really stand behind any decision I make, just because like who else have they fought? Like it's kind of hard. I feel like Claressa Shields has she fought somebody else who's pretty good. Hammer, I've never really seen her fight anybody like noteworthy. But the women's division is like growing, so it's kind of hard.
I know Claressa Shields fought some woman named, I don't remember her first name. Her last name is Gabriel, and she was really good at the time. So that put me on Claressa Shields, to be honest with you. Like, not even the whole Olympics thing. It's just I just saw her dismantle some girl who she was supposed to lose to. So I hope she wins, man. I hope she wins.
All right. And
you have the odds of that fight?
You said which one?
You have the odds? Are there any odds for that fight?
Yeah. Let's see. So Hammer's a plus 230 underdog, and Claressa Shields is a minus 280 favorite. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds about right. So I mean, if people are betting, just bet on all the favorites this weekend because that's what's gonna happen.
And
I got to put big money down to win something, but all the favorites guaranteed are gonna win.
Except in the Quillin fight.
Yeah.
So yeah,
he said he was a what?
He's a minus 245. Nah, he's more than 2-1. He's a 2.5 to. He's like a 2.5 to 1 favorite. So and then Caleb Truax is a plus 195 underdog. So you can win some money on Caleb Truax. Like, so if you go based off what you're hearing here, you can make some good money off of that. Do you have any UFC picks before I let you go?
You know what? I honestly haven't seen the card too much, man. I know the main event. I got Adesanya winning, and I got Max Holloway winning. I think everybody has Max Holloway winning. But I honestly haven't looked at the card too much, man.
I'm not really going with Max Holloway on this one.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Why is that?
Because Poirier's beaten him before. Like, Poirier's already beaten him in the past, even though it was Max's debut fight and it was on short notice. Poirier's already proven that he could beat him. And then Poirier's been at 155 for a while. So Poirier's a bigger version of the guy who he fought. So it's like, and it seems like Poirier's taking him seriously. It's not like Poirier's like expecting the same guy who he beat up. He's taking him seriously. And then it's like, is Max preparing for the guy who beat him last time? Or is he thinking ahead like, oh man, this guy's a better version of who I fought too? Like,
oh yeah.
And then Max gets hit a lot too. He gets hit a lot. And I don't feel like I feel like it's under his control, but I feel like he kind of like proves a point by getting hit.
Yeah.
Because who did he just fight? Brian Ortega. I felt like
Holloway did.
Yeah, I felt like he could have. Ortega's really good, but I feel like he could have left with less damage. Like there was a couple times like where Ortega hit him with some stuff where I was like, damn, if Ortega had more power or Max had less of a chin, that like he could just drop him. Like, cause he got caught with some cool with some punches like on the way out. And Dustin Poirier mixes it up a lot too. So with that, that's kind of like where I'm leaning towards. And then the Adesanya.
Confident bet.
Huh?
Like, is that a confident bet? Are you 100%? You would definitely make that bet. That's the Poirier.
If I'm betting money on, I'll bet on Poirier.
Okay.
I wouldn't bet in this. Like, I'm not a rich man, so this doesn't really mean much. But I wouldn't bet more than $50 on Poirier.
Yeah.
Like somebody could talk me into betting $50 straight up on Poirier to beat Holloway. You know, I'm pretty confident in that.
You know, my thing is I've bet plenty of times on against Max Holloway and I lost every time.
That's where I was too.
And this is going back to my boy Jeremy Stevens. So this is going back to Jeremy Stevens. Jeremy Stevens got beat up. I bet on Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis got beat up. So I think the last one I bet on was the second. He fought Jose Aldo twice, didn't he?
Yeah, he fought Jose Aldo twice.
Yeah, and so I think it was the second one was the last time I bet against Max Holloway. But that's 3 fights right there. I'm done betting against him.
I don't blame you at all. Like it's far from an upset. He's obviously the favorite in that fight.
Yeah.
I just think he's going up in weight, and he gets hit a lot, man. Like he wins the fights, but people touch him, like touch him with good shots. He takes them, but people touch him with good shots. And at some point, especially like in boxing, you see it a lot more. But like if people are hitting you with good shots, the fight's going to be over. Like if somebody can find a way, like if somebody finds an opening that you have in your defense, like at some point somebody's going to cash in on that. Like somebody's watching film and they're going to cash in on that error in your defense. But and then Adesanya, the Adesanya Gastelum fight, you know I want Adesanya to win. Gastelum's a tricky dude. Like it seems like he's always an underdog. He always pulls it off, but he does lose a lot of fights that he does lose a lot of big fights. Like I got the thing pulled up right here. He lost to I got his record pulled up. He lost to Tyron Woodley. I remember that fight. He even came in overweight for that fight and lost. I don't know why it was a split decision, but he lost that. He lost to Neil Magny. Neil Magny just outworked him.
Yeah.
And then he lost to Chris Weidman. But he has like some pretty good wins as well. He has like some really good wins, but he's a tricky person, man. I'm going back and forth on this one. You're familiar with Uriah Hall?
Yeah, yes, of course. I like Uriah Hall. I used to like
Yeah,
him.
I feel like stylistically, like Stylebender's a better version of him, but as far as a sparring partner, I feel like that's as good as it gets. Like in preparing for Stylebender, and Uriah Hall's like one of his main training partners, and he beat Uriah Hall, and then they became training partners. But it's a tough one, man. Kelvin's a wrestler too. It's tough, man. One thing I will say, two things I will say. I had Stylebender all the way up, like leading up to this, but then I had a dream that Kelvin beat him by toe hold. So I just want that on record that I had Kelvin beating him by toe hold. But realistically, when I think about it awake, if Kelvin beats him, I see him catching him. And I noticed Kelvin, there's like a huge size difference between the two. But he does this thing like where he kind of hops in, hops out, he feints a lot, and he gets people to lunge in. Like when you look at the Bisping fight, I've seen him do it against a couple other people too. He gets them to lean in, even though they have a size advantage and they should just kind of keep them at bay. He gets them to overcommit and they lean in and he catches them. And he got like really good timing. And he gets them to like lunge, like lean forward or there's no going back, and then he catches them.
Yeah.
So that's one way that's one of the ways I could see him beating Adesanya. And the height advantage isn't always good, man. Like I've seen so many fights like where people aren't landing the kicks that they usually land just because the person's shorter, and then they're kind of staying low, and then they're going for head kicks, and those head kicks are just going way over to somebody's head, and you're just not really getting your offense out the way you want to. But then Stylebender is what's kind of make me lean towards Kelvin is there's only one way I see Stylebender winning, and that's like just picking them apart. And either picking them apart and beating them up for 5 rounds, or picking them apart and like slowly breaking them down where it's like a TKO big victory. But I don't see him like knocking them out cold, and I don't see him submitting Kelvin. But I can see Kelvin wrestling him. I can see Kelvin submitting him. I can see Kelvin knocking him out. I just feel like he has more ways of winning the fight, and that's what's kind of like making me lean towards Kelvin in this.
You kind of convinced me to pick Kelvin. the way you broke it down like that.
That's
you know what it is, man. I don't know if you remember back when Kevin fought Gastelum fought Johnny Hendricks.
Yeah.
And I put money on that entire card, man. And that was the last fight that I needed to win. And I bet on Johnny Hendricks. I don't know about Kevin Gastelum at the time, but I don't know how good he was at that time. And Kevin Gastelum beat the hell out of Johnny Hendricks, man. I lost almost won $1,200, man. And ever since then, I never cared about him.
And that was a parlay. How much did you put on it?
I think it was like $40.
That's what I'm trying to tell people, man. Parlays are the way to go. Just pick multiple fights, bet a small amount of money, and hopefully all your fights hit. But rather than bet 100 and pick like 1 or 2 fights and possibly win 100, I'd rather put 20 down and bet on 7 things and possibly win a couple grand.
Oh, definitely.
Like,
that's all I do is parlay bet.
that's the way to go. Yeah, man.
There's plenty of bets where you can bet $5 to win, 400. Who wouldn't take that? I'll do it just cause. $5, I can win 400.
Hey.
And all I need is a Pistons to win.
Nah, you ain't got to convince me though. But yeah. Hey, anything else you want to talk about? Any of these? Anything else you want to bring up about any of these weekend's fights, or did you pretty much touch on all of it?
That was pretty much it, man. I'm excited for all of them. To be honest with you, like I said, there's a couple of guaranteed wins. I'm excited for the UFC fights as well, man. So I'll most likely stream that. Maybe go to a bar, but it's gonna be a good weekend for fights, man. So hopefully everybody tunes in.
Yep. Hey, definitely, man. And hey, I appreciate your time. There's another big fight coming up next week. That Crawford fights next week, I believe.
Yes.
All right. So we'll hear from you then. But yeah, man, again, I appreciate your time.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on.
All right, brother.
All right, take it easy. All right, that was Brandon. Yeah, really good insight, really knowledgeable. Honestly, between him and my brother Michael, for the most part, unless it's like somebody I truly follow, I always talk to one of those two, like really get some insight as to like who's most likely to win. Because like with the Truax fight, had I not spoken to Brandon, I would have easily went with Peter Quillin. But after talking to Brandon, he made sense of it. It made perfect sense. But I need to go with Truax in that fight. The Quillin thing would have just been betting with my heart, really. And try not to bet with your heart. That'll lose you some money. Like you follow your heart, that's gonna lose you some money. But yeah, real quick, there's some other fights that I just kind of wanted to go over before I end this. We have a matchup, Brandon Davis versus Randy Costa. I thought Randy Costa was related to Paulo Costa, but I found out he wasn't. Brandon Davis is really good, and I haven't really seen Randy Costa fight. Watch some little highlights, try to find what I could find out on YouTube. And that's one thing I always recommend to people. If you don't know about a fight, either try to learn as fast as possible or don't bet on it. But if you don't know about it, like you'll lose money, especially doing parlays. Like you'll find at the end of the day, the things you knew about, you're probably right. And then the thing that you didn't know about, you ended up losing money because of it, because you're just betting on something you didn't know. So I did some quick research. I'm not sitting here saying you have to be an expert on like any of these fighters, but I did some quick research, and I've seen Brandon Davis fight plenty of times. But Randy Costa, crazy power. He looked really good in the footage I've seen. I'm gonna go with Randy Costa in this one. Spoke to another friend of mine. I'm not really up on female fighters until they get to UFC level, and then that's all I really base it off. But a really good friend of mine, Nico, I'm gonna have him on the show one of these days. He's he follows like Invicta and a lot of the lower level MMA circuits before they make it to the UFC, and he knows about a lot of these girls. And he was telling me that this is a pretty tough pick between the two, but he was saying he was leaning towards Lauren Mueller just because of her wrestling background. And he says, as along with people like Joe Rogan and others, that wrestling is the best base. If you had to choose any kind of style that would work best with MMA, lean towards wrestling. And then these two are pretty evenly matched. But Lauren Mueller, he was saying, is a better wrestler, and that's the reason why he has her winning. So even though she's coming off a loss in her last fight, I'm gonna still go with Lauren Mueller on this one. Poliana, she's pretty good. I've seen her fight a couple of times. I wouldn't be surprised either way. Let's see what the odds are on these. That's one of those close ones, honestly. Like if you're doing a parlay, unless you really, really just know something, like this one's a close fight. Lauren Mueller is a slight underdog. Unless you're really, really passionate, I would just stay away from this one. Like I would not put this on my parlay ticket. I'm not confident in choosing either one of these. If you put a gun in my head just based off what I've seen, and I've seen them both fight. They're both pretty good. Like nobody's spectacular, like jumping out the screen at me, but just based off like what Nico told me, I'd lean towards Lauren Mueller, but I probably wouldn't put this one on a parlay bet slip unless I was just doing multiple ones. But if I was just doing one parlay slip where I pick like 7 fights, I'd probably keep this one off. Okay, Montel Jackson versus Andre Sukumov, whatever. I seen Andre fight. He fought what's his name with the afro? Sugar Sean O'Malley. He's kind of flashy, but Sugar Sean O'Malley beat him, and he beat him with a broken leg too. Montel Jackson's pretty good. Montel Jackson's a good fighter. He hasn't done anything yet that like lets me know that he's like the cream of the crop, but he's a pretty good fighter. I would choose Montel Jackson in this one, but this is another thing that I do with parlays. I would not bet on this fight at all unless you're passionate and you think Andre Sukumov is going to pull off the upset. Just because I'll show you right now. Where are the odds for that? Andre Sukumov is a plus 375 underdog. Montel Jackson's a minus 550 favorite, which is crazy. Like Montel Jackson's good, but I don't know. Minus 550 is kind of crazy for MMA. And that just like lets you know, like, okay, Montel Jackson's really good, but he's not that damn good to have that much of a gap between these two. I don't feel like there's that much of a separation between two based off what I've seen at the UFC level. So I wouldn't even bet on this fight because I'd choose Montel Jackson, period. But the risk reward factor isn't here. Like it's not worth it. Like you have nothing to gain. Minus 550, you're not really gonna make any money off that. And he's not that dominant where you're just 100% sure he's gonna win. I'm like in the 80 percentile that he's gonna win. Low 80s, high 70s. That Montel Jackson's gonna win. My confidence level. And then if you were to bet on this fight, I'd only put it on if you're betting for Andre Sukumov, just because it's plus 375 underdog. You can really make some money off that. So if you've seen something here where you feel stylistically Andre could pull off the upset, that's a good fight for you to bet on. But if you're betting on Montel Jackson, just it's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. I would just stay away from that one. This one, the trickiest fight on the card. Curtis Millender, killing it ever since he came to the UFC. He just came off a loss. Curtis Millender is like explosive. Has some pop in everything he throws, like his hands, his elbows, his knees. He loves that high knee though. Like he does a high knee a lot. He didn't really get a chance to showcase his striking in his last fight. Dude pretty much took him down, and the fight was over from there. Belal Muhammad, I don't know what his ground game is like because he never goes to the ground. He's always striking. Belal Muhammad can box. Like he can really box. Let me go to Sherdog for this one. I like to use Sherdog just to kind of get a quick refresher on some of these fights because sometimes you forget times tables and like time frames as far as when somebody fought who and whatever the case may be, or who they fought and how they lost and so on. Belal Muhammad, his Jeff Neal, I knew Jeff Neal was going to win that one. That was just a boxing match, and Jeff Neal was just a better boxer. Vicente Luque packs a punch. Alan Joban, I feel like that's a good one. I feel like Alan Joban and Tim Means are good fights to kind of watch to gauge where you think Curtis Millender will fit in, because those are probably like the most similar fighting styles that Muhammad has fought, where that can like kind of prepare him for somebody like Curtis Millender. Honestly, the Tim Means comparison is really good, just because I feel like Curtis Millender is probably like a way better version of, like, not way better, a really good version of Tim Means. Tim Means is really good. And I just feel like Curtis Millender is like a better, more athletic version of Tim Means, like with his striking and stuff. So I'd watch the Tim Means fight, and it was a split decision win for Muhammad. See where Tim Means went wrong or what happened there, and kind of make a decision based off that. I can't think of that fight off the top of my head. But if you had a split decision with Tim Means, and I'm saying this guy's a better version of Tim Means, then obviously I'm going to have to go with Curtis Millender in this fight. But, man, Muhammad, he has a way of, like, he beats some people, but doesn't look – he knocks them out. Like, he got some pop, man. Like, he got some power in his hands, and he's really good at boxing. Max Griffin, that's probably like somebody good to compare Belal Muhammad to. I feel like Belal Muhammad, I'd give the edge, like I'd say is better than Max Griffin, but in preparation for somebody like Max Griffin, I would think back to for somebody like Belal Muhammad, if I was Curtis Millender, I'd think back to somebody like Max Griffin and kind of see what went right there. And I remember that fight, and that was pretty one-sided. Belal Muhammad is a sharp boxer, but sharp boxer with some power. But I think Curtis Millender is going to keep him at distance and like land some good shots and possibly get the finish or just win on scorecards. But I got Curtis Millender in that fight. Boston Salmon versus Khalil Taha. They say don't bet with your heart, but sometimes you can't help it. I remember I bet on Khalil to win his last fight. I forgot who he fought that fight, but I remember I bet on him and I lost. I never seen him fight either, and that's one of the things that you got to be careful about. And then Boston Salmon, I never seen him fight, but I've heard good things about him, so I'd lean towards Boston Salmon just based off like what I heard and who I heard it from. I would lean towards Boston Salmon on this one. Max Griffin versus Alim Amadeev. Max Griffin's a tricky fighter as well. A lot of ups and downs in his career. He has some bad losses. He has some good wins. Let's pull up his record. So, like I said earlier, he lost to Curtis Millender. And he lost to Thiago Alves in a fight that pretty much everybody thinks he won. Yeah, he has quite a few losses in here. And then as for Zalim, this is his UFC debut, but like look at TKOs. And the reason I'm gonna go with Zalim Amadeev is because after Max Griffin's loss to Thiago Alves, he was like really frustrated, and then he was saying that he's not gonna leave it in the hands of the judges anymore. Which, when you say that, that usually means that you're gonna be a lot more aggressive and try to finish the fight. And the best Max Griffin ever looked was when he fought Mike Perry, who's like a crazy power puncher, and he got caught a few times, but he did a really good job of boxing, like outboxing Mike Perry and keeping him at distance and getting his combos off and all that. But I feel like if he's gonna go with the more aggressive finishing style, like he said he will, then I gotta go with this guy just because it seems like the UFC kind of knows what they're doing a lot of times, and to put a guy in his debut against somebody like Max Griffin, you must know something. And then you look at the KOs, it seems like skill-wise, they think he's ready for this moment. And Max Griffin, presumably going to be more aggressive, is more susceptible to being TKO'd. So I gotta go with the Russian on that one. Where's that fight at? I can't find the odds on that. There it is. True. All right, so Zalim is a slight favorite. This is a really good fight to bet on, like for a parlay. I like that. I would go with Zalim. And then I said Curtis Millender. Curtis Millender is a slight underdog. This is a close fight, but I'm going Millender. So that's a good thing that they have him as a slight underdog. You can make some money off that. I already told you Randy Costa. He's a slight underdog as well. You can make some money off that. So far, if your ticket is following like mine, you can make some money. What else we got this weekend? This is a tricky one. This is one of those ones similar to a women's fight that we have earlier. I'd stay away from unless you really feel passionately about one of them. If I had to choose, I'd go with Wilson Hayes just because I've seen more of his body of work. But if you're doing a parlay, that's one of those fights that can just like ruin your ticket. Wilson Hayes is a slight underdog. Try to make your picks without basing off what the odds are. unless you're doing multiple tickets, then after you do your first ticket, I would begin to start playing with the odds a little bit and seeing if I can make some money, picking certain things. But if I'm only doing one ticket, I try not to look at odds. I try to make my picks first. That way I don't feel like I'm swayed by greed, pretty much, by trying to make more money. I'd go with Wilson Hayes in this just because I've seen him fight more. But Alexandre Pantoja, I've seen him fight a couple times, but yeah, I'd have to go with Wilson in that. But stay away from that. Jalen Turner versus Matt Frevola. Jalen Turner, this is a fight at 155. Jalen Turner was previously fighting at 170, had some bad losses. Matt Frevola, I think he had fight of the night with Lando Venata. That was a really good fight. I like Lando Venata, so in the moment, I'm happy Venata got away with it, but I actually felt like Matt Frevola won that fight. Landed some really good shots. He could take some really good shots. Jalen Turner, he had trouble taking shots, and then cutting weight apparently only makes it harder to take the kind of punishment. So Jalen Turner's a big guy, but 155, I'd go with Frevola on that for sure. Not for sure, but nothing's for sure, especially with MMA. But I go with Matt Frevola, and you can see there you'll make a little bit of money. Ovin St. Preux versus Nikita Krylov. Really good fight. Both guys have some good wins. Both guys have some bad losses. I'm leaning more towards Ovin St. Preux just because he's been in bigger fights. He's done a lot, against some really good competition, but he does have some bad losses. You take away that Latifi fight, though, a lot of the opponents he lost to, are acceptable losses. Nikita Krylov lost to Jan Blachowicz. That's a good fighter, but yeah, it kind of looks like Nikita Krylov lost to a lot of top 10 light heavyweights. Oh, I didn't even know what they fought before. Yeah, apparently they fought before, and Ovin St. Preux already beat him. So history's going to repeat itself on that one, in my opinion. Ovin St. Preux, he's like one of those kind of gatekeeper fighters. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. He's fought for a belt. He's a top 7 guy. You're not going to beat him unless you belong in that top realm. He's not a gatekeeper. You just put him in there with anybody. If you don't belong in the top, you're not beating him. Nikita Krylov's a pretty big guy, but looking at it, I thought Nikita Krylov would be taller 6'3", but it looks like they're the same height. The reach advantage, Ovin St. Preux. I got Ovin St. Preux winning by submission again in that fight. Dwight Grant versus Alan Jobon. It's up to you on this one. I'm gonna go with Dwight Grant on that. Dwight Grant, he was on the Dana White Contender Series, not looking for a fight. Contender Series, really good, lots of power. Trains at AKA with Daniel Cormier, Cain Velasquez, Khabib, Luke Rockhold, all the big names. He made his debut against Zachariah in a loss that I really feel like he actually won that fight, in my opinion. And then he just came back and finished the fight. So he let it be known. He let it be known like he didn't leave it in the hands of judges this time. But Zachariah could take some shots. So yeah, that's kind of like why he stuck around. Not every fight can get finished, no matter if you have the power. But I feel like Dwight Grant does have the power and a really good skill set. Alex Joban, the reason why I'm picking against him, he's lost some fights. As you can see, he's been knocked out a few times. He's a really good fighter, though. He's like one of those fighters that, at his best, he's one of the best. Like on his best day, he's one of the best. But even on his best day, he can get like clipped sometimes. Like I look at the Bilal Muhammad fight, I look at the Mike Perry fight. Like I remember those two. Like he got caught with some shots that probably could have ended the fight. He was rocked, but weathered the storm. But he wasn't lucky enough to do that against people like Albert Tumanov and Nico Price. Gunnar Nelson finished him as well. Like these two wins are like really good wins, Mike Perry and Muhammad, but I feel like these two guys aren't really aren't mixing it up enough. Like they're not really taking you down or anything. They're just going for the finish, like striking wise. So they get you hurt, they're swinging, and he's able to weather that storm even when hurt. So that's kind of like what enabled him to make it through these fights. But the Nico Price one, he was just really hurt by that punch, and the Gunnar Nelson, yeah, I think Dwight Grant is gonna mix it up. I think if he gets him hurt, he's not the type of fighter that's just swinging for the fences. Like he'll take his time, maybe even take him down, get a submission if necessary. But he has some real power in his hands, and I feel like he's gonna catch Joban with some of that power. That's a really good fight, though. Eric Anders versus Khalil Roundtree. That's a pretty evenly matched fight. I'm leaning towards Khalil Roundtree. Eric Anders seems to kind of gas, and Khalil Roundtree has some real power. And then I noticed that he's been in Thailand training on his kickboxing. Like he might have some new techniques. The techniques he had prior to that, I felt were enough to kind of win this fight. And then just the fact that he's been over in Thailand, like just really training on his striking, like cleaning it up, just becoming more sharper. I'm going with Khalil Roundtree. And then you heard my my insight on this fight earlier. I like Israel a lot, but I like him a lot, man. Huge, like I'm a really big fan, and I really hope he does win. On their best day, I think Adesanya could win that fight, but he's been fighting a lot lately. He does get caught with some shots. Kelvin, I just feel like people just underestimate Kelvin. He's just underestimated a lot, and I feel like if you underestimate him, you'll lose. And I just feel like Adesanya is underestimating him. So I'm leaning towards Kelvin in that one. And then I talked about this one as well. Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier. I have Poirier pulling off the upset. He does it again. So, yeah, I kind of already touched on the reasons why I have those happening. So if you're following along with me, I'm going with Kelvin, Roundtree. If I had to choose, I'm choosing Wilson Hayes. I wouldn't even bet on this fight. I'm about to go with Montel Jackson. I got Ovince St. Preux doing it again. That one's tricky, man. The more I think about it, that one's tricky. So don't just take my word for that one. I don't know too much about these fighters. I know Khalil Taha kind of let me down last time. Boston Salmon heard nothing but good things, so I'm leaning towards him. Laura Mueller, don't know. I mean, I know, but not enough. Poliana, same case, but lean towards the wrestler from what I was told. So I'm leaning towards Lauren Mueller. Alan Joban versus Dwight Grant. I got Dwight Grant, just crazy power in his hands. Joban gets caught. Joban can strike too, don't get me wrong, but he's picking you apart, and eventually he always gets like caught with something. And I feel like when Dwight Grant catches him with something, it's going to end the fight. I got Matt Frivola winning just because he's a natural 155. Jalen Turner's coming down. Jalen Turner's coming off 2 losses. He's proven that he can be knocked out, and he's cutting 15 more pounds off that big frame. I feel like it's just going to be really hard for him to take a shot. Salim, I got beating Max Griffin. Just because I feel like Max Griffin's going to be overly aggressive coming off a decision loss to Thiago Alves. And Zalim is a knockout artist. You're aggressive against a knockout artist. You're kind of setting yourself up for failure. Curtis Millender, I feel like it's going to keep Bilal Muhammad at distance, but Bilal Muhammad is really sharp and got some pop in his punches. So anything can happen, but I feel like Curtis Millender does a good job of like not getting caught with big shots. Maybe if the person was a little bit more of a kicker, you'd have a better chance of catching them with something or mixing it up maybe like with takedowns, but Bilal Muhammad doesn't really go for takedowns too much. I think Curtis Millender keeps him at distance, either drops him with a big shot or just wins the decision. Randy Costa, I have him beating up Brandon Davis by knockout. And then last, I have Dustin Poirier pulling off the upset against Max Holloway. A lot of people are going with Max, but Dustin Poirier is really good. Mixes up really well. Obviously, people were going with Max for a reason, but I just feel like Max gets caught with a lot of punches he shouldn't get caught with. And I think that's just like more of a mental mistake than anything. Yeah, and like I always say, I lean towards parlays. Just trying to show you guys an example. So I would take this one off because I'm not confident in that. I take this one off. Let's see. What else? Oh yeah, take off Montel Jackson. So there's only so many bets that you can do, like on a parlay slip. I would. These are the fights I'd go with. I'm not really feeling too confident about that one. Let's see if I can add the boxing on this ticket. And based off what Brandon was saying, Caleb Truax, I'm gonna add to that. Yeah, so these are all the fights that I chose. If I were in Vegas, which I'm not, just kind of give you guys an example. Not saying you have to pick this many fights. Just the more you pick, the crazier your odds are going to be. So keep that in mind. But still, remember, one loss throws off everything. So if you're not confident in anything, take it off. If that means you only have 5 fights on the ticket, hey, keep it at 5 fights, but you can really make some money on parlay slips. Let's just say I did 20 on this one. That's a crazy amount. I mean, the online odds are slightly different than what you could actually win in Vegas. So keep in mind, if you're in Vegas, it might be slightly less than that, but that's kind of like in the ballpark. Like if all this hit, you can make some real money. So yeah, just bet smart. My mom says, don't say what you don't know. Don't bet on what you don't know. If you never seen somebody fight, and that kind of goes for both fighters. If you don't know what both fighters are bringing to the table, kind of stay away from it. Just bet smart. Leave your heart out of it. Like leave your heart out of it a lot. Your heart will like make you lose money. And yeah, if you disagree with anything I'm saying, feel free to comment. Other people, I recommend you read through their comments. Maybe they have like some really good insight that I didn't touch on, and it'll help you make a better bet. But till next week, this is The Fix Is In. I'd like to thank Brandon for joining me. Nico reaching out, giving me some really quick insight as to some of these UFC fights going on this weekend. Also, special shout out to my sponsor, Fighting Weight. You guys make sure you guys go follow them on Instagram, Fighting Weight SR, at Fighting Weight SR on Instagram. They're doing some really good things. I'm on their network, Fighting Weight TV, their YouTube channel. So yeah, any questions, hit me with comments, anything like that. But until next week, bet smart.